Hello everyone, just a quick PSA before we jump into the episode. We had some audio issues on this one. The Discord audio was a little bit messed up, and Frodan's audio source from our direct feed was not the right one. So we did our best to clean it up. It is a little bit rough at the beginning, but it does get better towards the end as we settle into a little bit of a rhythm. So thanks for watching. Sorry about the audio issues. We'll get them fixed for next time. Hello everyone and welcome to the Rolldown, the TFT Esports podcast where we talk about everything from the grassroots to the pro scene, from the couch to the crown. My name is CLE, joined once again by future Fantasy Football League champion Gangly. You're making the run, right?
I am. My first ever my inaugural fantasy football season has continued on. I have my first ever playoff series win in fantasy football, so I'm still in the game.
It's like our third most DM'd about thing. It's like goes like number one, probably this podcast, number two, Riftbound, then it goes to fantasy football.
I feel like three might be me complaining about my solo queue games and then fantasy football. But that's about that.
That's probably about right. Joining us on the show is the pillar of the TFT esports scene and soon to be also the Riftbound esports scene for sure, probably somehow. Frodan, thank you for coming on the show. We're excited to have you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Glad to be here.
So today we're going to talk about a lot of things. We all just came from the Paris Open. It is currently 2:00 in Paris AM, and we're all got a little jet lag, so we might as well spend some time talking and yapping about it. So we're going to talk about all things Paris Open. We're going to talk about why set 16 is most likely the best and most competitively interesting set going forward, and how Gangly and I can be more like Frodan, because this guy just dominates every game he touches. And you competed in Houston at the most recent regional. This is a fancy picture of you on the broadcast.
Picture, wait.
That's a great picture.
I need to find that picture source and download it for myself.
It's a good one. Also, how many teams are you signed to? What is happening here?
So I'm technically not on any team right now. My contract with Vitality expired as of 12 hours ago.
Whoa!
As soon as I got back from the Paris Open, so technically a free agent. This arrangement at Houston was because my friends were going. I studied Riftbound with a group of creators and influencers, and we're friends with the Disguise team, DSG folks, and they said, "Hey, we want to do like a small content foray into Houston. How about you just like wear our jersey and just you're not like officially part of anything. I didn't get paid anything. I didn't get any like favors. It was just more just like hanging out with them." I said, "Yeah, why not?" I asked the Vitality guys if it was cool. They said it was totally fine. So it was just like a friend representing thing, kind of how Toast brings like Saikuno. And Saikuno's like on DSG for the Paris event. Very similar to that. And I am wearing a TFT Academy hoodie because that is, I am technically an executive there and one of the owners of it. So felt like it was a good represent. Plus, it was a good crossover with the Houston Riftbound Regional. It turns out there's a lot of TFT players who are at Houston and said, "Wow, that's crazy. I'm actually going to Paris next week. I didn't expect to see you here." I got a half a dozen or so of people who did that. There's a lot of people that actually went straight from here to Paris.
Are those the official Riftbound sleeves that you're playing with?
Yeah, which is not smart. I actually realized that I shouldn't use these deck sleeves for competition, but I got sent some Riot's. I got sent a Riot Gear package. They gave me starter kits, they gave me a box and some deck sleeves, and I decided to use that. For just to represent, like if Riot gives me stuff, I feel like I could use it to compete. It turns out though that one, DCs are really slippery, really slippery. Like I don't know if you can zoom in, but they're like glossy as opposed to sort of the matte effect of it. Oh, nice, good production value. And so the amount of times I went to draw a card and I knocked over my deck lists or my deck, which is just. I don't think there's a problem, right? You can call a judge to come fix it, but it's just one of those things where it just raises kind of suspicion, like, "Hey, what's going on there?" But he's like, you just like you take one card and like 3 slide off for no reason at all. The second is that it's something that I didn't realize until I was playing a lot of tabletop, but you're not supposed to have any cards for any reason not oriented the same way. So if you actually have like a Jinx art upside down, someone could like penalize you because it's like a way you marked your deck. And so it's just one of those things where it's just like it's just one of those things you have to maintain yourself. And there's so many things you have to hold mentally when you're playing a physical card game. Remember your triggers and you're trying to be able to stack and stuff. And if you add extra load for no reason at all, it just creates an extra source of stress. So I regret using TLDR. I regret using these card backs. They're really cool, but I don't think I'm going to run with them. I'm probably going to do some flat color instead next time.
I had a ton of fun watching the Houston event, by the way. I got to see Frodan play on stream, which you actually technically had 2 matches on stream, if I understand correctly, right? Because your first match, your opponent just didn't show up. Is that what it was? They saw you in the pairings. They're like, forget it. I'm not even going to try.
You know what? Let's just go with that. I think that sounds better. Yeah, they just gave up because they knew it wasn't even worth trying.
You had a match against a really strong Annie player as well. I'm blanking on the name, but I know that the player was like pretty well known, had a really strong run after losing to you as well. So I imagine that must have felt pretty good for you, actually, like having a hard match on stream and pulling through.
Yeah, this guy's a beast. His name is Dizzy. He actually plays TFT for fun on the side. He's just like a casual Master GM player, but he is very good at Riftbound and card games. He travels and competes. He top 8 the Vegas 10K the week and a half before this. And then after I beat him, he went on to win 7 in a row and was in contention for top 64, barely missed. And then the following weekend, which was just a couple days ago, he played in the Orlando PPG event and top cut there. This guy's very good. And so I didn't realize how good he was until after I kind of looked at his profile. I was like, damn, this guy's got some real chops. I can just tell, though. There's like an element of the way they carry themselves, but also the way he played Vi and sequenced it. I'm not sure if anybody listening here are Riftbound fans necessarily, but there's a mechanic with Vi where you choose exactly how much power you want, but you have to exile your trash. And the way he was going about it was extremely technical, and he just was very clean about it, making my life really difficult. So I was very impressed by his play, and overall, it was cool because at this Ripbound event, it was sort of a who's who of the TCG world. You had Magic champions who didn't qualify for the Worlds that happened that weekend. You have Lorcana champions, Yu-Gi-Oh champions, One Piece TCG champions, Hearthstone champions, Alan ZQ Hearthstone or Legends of Runeterra World champion, people who play Star Wars Unlimited, Grand Archive. There's just people who have top-aided and done so much across card games that it felt like some people tell me that this is the most stacked card game tournament that they can remember in a long time. So to do well at this event actually means a lot because it feels like you're kind of going up against the best of the best. That's not, of course, qualified for their own world championships.
I had DM'd you before this event because I was curious about Paris stuff and all these things. And you're like, oh, I'm going to this. And I'm like, what are you playing? He's like, oh, I'm playing Leona. And I was like, why? Why are we doing this to ourselves? And little did I know that you're the best Leona in the world.
I would say that this was also a decision made sort of at the very last second. I wasn't actually going to play Leona. I was going to play Ari or Yasuo and sort of Hail Married into Leona at the last minute, mainly because I was just having fun with the deck. I wanted to really have fun. I was there as a special invite, right, by Riot. And I also felt like I was doing pretty well in the practice games, but I couldn't tell because they're just practice games. So it's one of those things where I think I kind of followed my own golden rule of just have fun and do something comfortable and do something a little weird. And it worked out. But I wouldn't say I'm the best Leona, man. I feel like I look at other people's Leona lists. I'm like, that makes more sense than what I'm doing. I don't even think I brought the correct deck list. After I submitted, I went over it with Alan ZQ, and he asked me, why didn't you include a couple more of these and a little bit less of this? And we talked about it. I'm like, you know what? That sounds smart. And then all throughout the tournament, I kept thinking, man, why isn't this card like a second face breaker? I kind of need this. So I don't even think I ran the correct deck list, man.
I know we don't want to sit too long on the Riftbound stuff, Jack, but I'm just kind of curious.
We can talk about anything you guys want. I'm here for an hour, so you guys have me for whatever you want to.
Okay. Last Riftbound Houston question I have is just, obviously, there was a time, a lot of people know you for TFT, right? A lot of people have kind of come to follow you as a streamer, as a personality, strictly because of TFT. And they may actually not know about some of the history you have before TFT. Obviously, casting Hearthstone was a big part. Did you encounter people who might have known you from those earlier days, who maybe didn't follow you in TFT, and now it's almost like this, like, oh, a Frodan resurgence. The Hearthstone caster is back playing TCGs.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a handful of people who approached me even like the moment I got there saying, man, that's crazy. Like, I followed you in Hearthstone. I don't play TFT, but I know of it. And it's just cool to see you here. Some people didn't recognize me. They said, are you the same Frodan from Hearthstone? And I said, yeah. And they're like, wow, you look so different than I remember, because I had gotten eye surgery. I was wearing glasses back then, like 10 years ago. And I didn't really dye my hair blue. I dyed it other colors, right? So they didn't recognize me. They're like, they thought I was a different person. I was impersonating Frodan. But it was great. And I think it's one of those things where I feel very grateful, because it's almost remembering where I came from, right? Everything comes full circle. I've been doing this for a long time, and I hope I can keep doing it for a while. But I'm also extremely grateful for all the steps that led here on the way. And that includes my past of doing Hearthstone and StarCraft and League of Legends and so on and so forth.
And I think all the roads lead to what just happened this past weekend. It's just the biggest celebration in all of TFT, and that is the Paris Open, the biggest event of the year on the TFT calendar. There was 768 competitors, and both you and I, Dan, we were able to compete in this event. Now, both of us didn't have the greatest time competing in this event, but it was good regardless. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your games real quick and your experience as a player?
Sure. So going to this weekend, I actually told many people that I don't think I have a really good shot at it, because I had only played around 25 games or so. And I played a good portion of that while I was in Paris, right? Like going into it. So I pretty much didn't have many games, and I needed to catch up very quickly. My game plan going into it, I was actually to reroll as much as I could. And the issue with that is I went against my game plan in the very first game. I actually had a really good spot to reroll Ashe Tryndamere, and I chose to go against it because I didn't have Ashe, but I had perfect items for Ashe Trynd. I even hit Darken Bow off of Unsteel from Steel, and I should have taken that. Instead, I took Slammin', and because I had also a 2-star Bilgewater start, and I don't have many Bilgewater reps in terms of the way it was played. I played Bilgewater on PvE, but the way it was played on live, I didn't have many reps of it. And I decided to take a very difficult augment combination. I tried to play Slammin' with Salvage Bin. And so while trying to juggle all of these things on my first games, I just went 8th. And it was 8th by pretty close. Like, I think the other people in 5th, 6th, and 7th were less than 10 HP. I think if I just played better and even got a 5th there, that's the difference right there. I think I can potentially make cut, right? It's just a couple points off. And so I ended, 3rd or 4th here, and it was very, very narrow. But I'm happy with the other games I played. I think like game 2 was an Annie Fast 9, and I had a Annie board that honestly, it's a good 4th because it was like 1-star everything. And I just missed. Like, there was 2 other Annie players, and one of them just like hit everything, and I hit almost nothing. So 4th is fine. And then the third was okay. So I think it's one of those things where you just can't go 8th in this format. This is a high. I think I got baited by the fact that 2 people get through. And so I thought I needed to start off stronger than just going for like a simple reroll 5th or something like that, or a 4th. But I should have just taken it. And it's a good lesson learned, because if you just play normally, you have a higher chance of advance than just trying to do something fancy to make just for the sake of making it happen, if that makes sense.
Pretty interesting lobby dynamic too. Both Taro and Zaza going out, and the 2 players who I'm not familiar with either of the 2 players that did advance out of your group, but it does just go to show the nature of this format is pretty volatile and extremely difficult. And kind of what you're describing, Dan, you have very small margins, and if you can't execute within those margins, one game going 8th when maybe you could have turned into a 5th or a 4th is the difference maker.
I want to say something as well, is that I was a lobby that had 8 players, but there's also another dynamic that happened in this tournament, which is every lobby has an influencer slot, or has somebody that is like around that tier, right? Except I'm the influencer slot. So this actually kind of makes it just kind of by default one of the more hard lobbies. It's like 8 players, and usually other people are loading up, and I don't mean to flame, but like they're loading up with like Supernoon or like Leffen, and these are guys who they're guests, but they're like Emerald and Plat. So it feels like a lot easier for them to feel like, okay, well, this is one person that I know that all plays. And so it was kind of hard. I think my lobby, I definitely had a lot of players who kind of knew what they're doing. And we're like, they're all challengers, right? They're all people that kind of made it through earning it by buying the ticket. So that one felt like, if I was able to get through, I would have like earned it a lot better than someone like Setsuko who has 6 players in and he had to take Survivor first augment and then he just loads in the game with 100 more gold. Like that's just unacceptable, man. Come on.
All right, Jack. I want to hear some stories about your performance because I got to see.
Listen.
I didn't see all of your games because I was juggling watching like all my tri-state homies and you all at the same time. So I'm like running from station to station. I did see some spots though. I'm gonna let you talk about your games though.
Dan is complaining about his lobby. My lobby was so dumb. YBY, Yusa Lucas, Kade. There was like 10 Worlds appearances in my lobby. Anyway, it's fine. Game 1 was Rise Portal. So just load into game and have just an interesting spot. I'll say that.
Yeah, dude, you had the line, and I sent him. Let me give the context for the people. Jack loaded up with Arcanist, Quick Striker, Piltover, and about 3 days before the event, I sent Jack a screenshot of me playing a Jinx 3 Warwick T-Hex game, and I said, Jack. Is this how you play Jinx reroll? And let me just say, if Jack had recognized, I went top 2 that game for what it's worth. I top 2'd that game. Jack had the clearest Warwick T-Hex Jinx 3 game of all time. Yeah. See, all you needed to do, Jack, was play for the Fishbone Sniper Focus out.
This is what he sent me. That's not tech, man.
That's not tech. I mean, you're aware that Jinx is bugged, right?
Oh,
okay.
Oh, don't worry, Dan. We'll get there. We're very aware Jinx is bugged. Go on, Jack.
Okay, so I go 8th because I was dizzy and I get punished because this lobby's, punishes that. Second game, I load in. I'm playing from ahead because I know that's probably a better strategy for me in these kind of lobbies. Actually, I end up clicking restart mission because I was playing Shadow Isle starter and I didn't have the items to continue. And you're
6 win when you restart mission, right? Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't going to continue. So I get Jinx 2, and I'm excited because I have Rage Blade IE, and I'm like, okay, this will be a good carry right now. Instantly after I do that, my Jinx bugs, and I lose my streak. And then I continue to then win the next 5 rounds. So I lost out on like, I don't know the math on that. Just an incredible amount of gold. Yeah. And I just end up going 4th, and it's fine. I did beat YBY in that game, so I will hold that forever. The rest of the games, they were fine. I played some okay lines. My last game was whatever, but ended with 13 points, which is not the worst in the tournament. So we'll take it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad, man. Honestly, 13, it feels worse to be someone who lost on tiebreakers at 21. I know, like, our buddy Pakigam was at 21 and lost on tiebreakers. I think it happened to Stellar Mid-He, finalist from last year as well. So you finished the exact same as them, and you had fun and saved more time doing it. So
the same amount of prize money went straight into my pocket. So, Dan, we all had different experiences at this Open. It's actually pretty unique. So Gangly was on main broadcast, so was really busy doing that and creating hit songs. Dan, you were on co-stream a lot of the time, if not all the time, for your stream and Soju's stream. And I got to do a little bit of everything. Got to visit main broadcast, also got to visit Dan and be on co-stream with you guys. From your guys' experience, how did this compare to the other two? Because I wasn't in Macau, but I was in Vegas the first time. What was the comparison like?
It was a lot better. I think Riot improved so many things about the event across the board. The first was just the atmosphere was a lot better. Gangly, were you in Macau?
I was, yes.
Yeah, so I think Macau, the convention center may have been the same size, but it was just filled better. For Macau, there was like a third of the convention center that just wasn't used at all. In fact, the dev panel was sort of tucked away on the other side of the convention, and there was like a giant chasm. I'm talking like a straight 30-second walk from like the last table to the dev panel, and it was just in the corner looking kind of sad with bad lighting. And so it just felt like the floor plan was mapped out way better. And as a result, the way they integrated like Artist Alley down the center with the 2X KO arcade, it felt way more immersive, right? I think the mingling between communities felt great. Riftbound was on the side, but because it had such a large audience and amount of interested spectators, that it felt like they had their own pod, but they were also very much part of the con as well. And they were just steps away from another co-stream setup. The co-stream setups themselves were also a lot better. I'm a big fan of couch setups just because of the dynamic of the way I like to have the co-stream RAM. So Riot accommodated that as opposed to just giving us table and kind of similar to this, right? Like the random Secret Lab chair and a microphone and a couple monitors. They gave us a lot of stuff that we wanted. And then another element too that was really underrated was you could actually hear each of the co-stream setups, monitor out to the floor. And depending on where you're standing, you kind of caught bits and pieces and elements of the excitement around the venue, right? If the Brazilians were going crazy over Toady, you definitely heard that. The Spanish guys doing an actual mob, like a mosh pit in celebration of Safo. You got to see and hear a little bit of that when the Vietnamese guys were popping off. You could hear that too, and that's a good environment, right? It really captures that open feel, and that kind of stuff was just really missing. On top of major delays and technical issues in Macau, and on top of the fact that there just wasn't a lot of spectators because it turns out that the Chinese citizens needed a visa to go to Macau, so we just didn't have many spectators at all, and the French audience was great. So yeah, just like all those things, it was just 10 out of 10 across the board. Not perfect. When I say across the board, I mean just everything was improved, and I felt like it was 10 out of 10 experience. Sorry, let me clarify that. Really big fan of the way it was ran this year, and I hope that next year they don't have to do that much more different. Honestly, it's just kind of keep the same type of atmosphere, and I think they can because they've been to Vegas before. I think what was the most impressive thing about Paris was that they had never been there before. And that's one thing about event logistics that people really underestimate. Macau was a big struggle because it was the first time they had gone to Macau. This is the first time they gone to Paris, and yet it was such a home run. Sorry, I'm not rambling at this point, but there's a lot of things I want to say about it that I think I feel like Riot, we give them a hard time when they get things wrong. So like, oh, this could be better. But they really nailed this one.
Honestly, Dan, something I really appreciate about you in all your podcast content and all your co-streams is that you always make room for other people to talk, and you often don't take the spotlight to talk for a very long time when you very well could. So Jack and I are both very happy to let you talk and ramble as long as you'd like to. I do want to just double down on what Dan is saying here, though, especially coming from Macau into Paris. It was completely night and day. I loved Macau. Don't get me wrong. The event was a ton of fun. Still some incredible moments, but it felt very like insular. Like that. Like everything felt so contained compared to Vegas, which I felt was such a personable event. And granted, there's like the language barrier. That's like the most obvious thing you could attribute things to. In Macau, like obviously all the house audio is in Chinese. Like it's just like it's very hard as an American, as an English speaking native to feel super connected. And Paris, obviously, like there was still the French speaking broadcast was in house, but it did feel like everything was experiential. You couldn't go anywhere within the venue without experiencing TFT in one way or another. Whereas I felt like in Macau, like Dan is describing, you're like walking to go from wherever you are to wherever you're trying to get to, and you're not really thinking much about the venue outside of that. I got a little emotional at the end of the broadcast because we were just giving our final words, and I was saying how like this is such a crazy. I tweeted about it. I used very similar language. This like shared interest from around the world is something so unique to our scene that we get to be with all of these people that we do not know, we will probably never know, and yet we're celebrating with them around this thing that we love. This was the first time that this felt like a convention to me, that it was like people coming together who love TFT to celebrate the game, not just us watching a really sick tournament, which is what Vegas was. Like, Vegas was an awesome tournament. Top 8 of Vegas still will probably go down as the greatest finals in TFT history. I don't know if it will ever get topped, but it didn't feel like a coming together of people in the same way that this event did. And it's probably for all the reasons that Dan described before. But to me, there was something about this event that really spoke to me on like a community level, and really, I think, like, touched a part of my heart. It was awesome. Like, I really think anyone who is on the fence about attending, if Paris was any indication, Vegas next year is going to be a must go to.
I had said after Macau that I wouldn't miss another one, just because I missed out on the community aspect of it, of all my friends getting together and all the people that I want to meet and hang out with, and all these different things, being able to be in the same room and enjoy talking about and being in community about something we all have in common. And the comparison from Vegas specifically to Paris, it was like, oh, this was like the little TFT get together. We had a cool LAN tournament in Vegas, to holy moly, this thing is huge. There's so much going on. There's so many people. There's so many PCs. This thing's the next level. Like the room itself was like triple the size of Vegas. It felt like it was a fantastic experience, and there were so many things to experience. I didn't even get to experience them all. And I was
Artist Alley was sick
thankful.
too.
So sick. Yeah.
Greatest edition.
It was awesome. So I love the co-stream setups being spread out, and being able to be interacted with, and having people sit down and like laugh at jokes and enjoy one another's company, but as well as, center around and being like, I'm a real life chatter right now. That's just also sitting here and enjoying it. It was a good time. But let's talk a little bit more about the tournament aspect of it. I think one of the most interesting things that I want to point out first is that there was a pretty high success rate of the expected players to move forward that actually did in a very brutal format from day 1 to day 2. Dan, did you notice the same thing?
Yeah, there weren't actually that many upsets, much to the dismay of Soju. He was hate watching everyone. And a lot of people moved on to day 2. In fact, they moved on to day 2 and deeper into day 2 as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a testament to, TFT is a skill game. I think there's definitely an element of that. I also think that the set is really good at rewarding people who play well. Like, I think that there was definitely an element of shenanigans with Void. As soon as people started catching on to Void and learning how to play it, there's definitely like, well, this person has the unstoppable Void spot. But there is a lot of edge to be gained. And I think it's like one of those things where it shouldn't be like that surprising. Yeah, TFT has high variance, but the good players are good for a reason. And I think this set, they really rewarded a lot of the good players with difficult lines, right? If Fast 9 is good, which it was. Actually, I think Fast 9 was slightly overrated for this tournament, but it was very effective for sure. And you saw a lot of the good players get rewarded. And you saw bad plays also being punished as well. That's another thing too. I think about how Setsuko should have actually made it to the top 64, but he actually played a full stage without exiles. He clicked exiles at 4-2, then tried to fast 9 with his Yordles and forgot about exiles. Ends up being off by 2 points to advance, but that's because he went 5th instead of like 2nd or 3rd. And that was the diff, right? So it's sad to say, because I want Sissigler to do well. I want North Korea to do well, but you also want to see good play rewarded and bad play punished. So it was a lot of like that at play, especially with the set, which is why I think it's really good.
I feel like this format exposed this one. There's something in TFT that I've always had a hard time explaining to people. Maybe you guys can find better words to get me there, to get it there. But like in other games, the same mistake doesn't punish a challenger player in the same way that it would punish a silver player if you can just outhand someone, right? But in TFT, you can't hide behind mechanics in any way, which means that like, even though Setsuko is significantly better than a lot of the people in the field, him making the mistake of not recognizing his exiles punishes him just as hard as if he were a terrible player. Like, you can't actually hide behind any other mechanic to get there. And that is like a really unique thing about TFT. I feel like this format really exposed that though, right? It's like, yes, it's high variance, but it's high variance in the sense that you're just playing with narrow margins, and fantastic players, they can play within those margins more often than not. But if they make a mistake outside those margins, they're punished just as hard as if they were a bad player. I don't know if that how clear that is, but there's something there about this format and how it does expose players' weaknesses and mistakes.
I think most often it's just there's little room for mistakes in TFT, and in this format there's no room for mistakes, because especially on day one where you have to go top 2 in your group or be top 64 after that, there's little to work with. But especially in this round of 64, there was basically, I mean, especially in the last game, no room for error if you're going to move forward in this checkmate format. And I think that's kind of where we want to go next, is talking about this round of 64. One, it was incredibly hyped to watch as somebody who's watching, but as a player's, I imagine it was fairly frustrating. Dan, what was your experience in interacting with the players that had played in this or were talking about it as it was happening?
I think there was elements about it that like worked. I think for one thing, it kind of created a very hype. It created like a lot of excitement around who made it through when it was the good version of it. So I think Todi, for example, going 1-1-6-1-1.
Yeah.
That is very hype for Brazil. And the fact that it was checkmate and definitive game 5, right? Or definitive, game 5, game 6 for some of them is good. Same thing with Safo. I think the bad version of checkmate also surfaced in this. I look at the lobby with Asa, for example, and you saw the 4th best player making it through, which I understand, again, that's the dynamics of checkmate. That's kind of the trade-off you have. But this felt like, I mean, I don't. It's not a knock against Just Feel Alive. It just didn't feel like that was the deserving setup there. It just felt like he hit the void. He hit the unstoppable, like Village Water, that kind of stuff. And it felt like Asa, who had played genuinely amazing this lobby, was not rewarded for that. So there's I think checkmate kind of reared both extremes. There was a lot of really cool moments. I hope they don't bring that back. I feel like it's a little too much. I think it's too much extremes being pushed there. I feel like we could try to save checkmate for the final day. Plus, it makes checkmate a little bit less exciting in itself, right? Checkmate becomes less cool the more you do it, because it's too much like, this is the finale, and then this is the finale, and this is the finale. So I appreciate a lot of like the elements of what they were trying here, but I personally think that it should just be the best. If you want to do 8 lobbies, 1 player from each, just play 6 games. But it was also too many games as well. It was 12 games in one day, which is kind of insane. So yeah, that's another element that I want them to examine as well.
On the note of Asa, I do want to say, if anyone has not seen, there is I'm assuming it's TFT clips. I saw a video this morning that I had not actually seen before of Asa. This is on Dan's co-stream, is playing this Fast 9 Bronze for Life game with a really cool pivot. And I watched this video. I don't comment on YouTube videos very often. I watched this video and I felt, for the first time in years, compelled to comment, just saying, wow, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in TFT. It was like a level of skill expression that only this set, and maybe not only this set, but it was a level of skill expression that this set allows you to have that I have not seen in TFT in a long time, or at least not seen in what felt like a very honest way. I think maybe that's what it was. Like, watching Asa do this Fast 9 transition felt like old school TFT to me. And so if you haven't already seen it, just go on YouTube. I'm sure you can find something that's, I don't know, if you look up TFT clips and find some video about Asa, it'll be there. You'll find it one way or another. Go check it out. Asa is like such a beast, and it's been a little bit since he's like really gotten his flowers. So I was hoping for him to make top 8. So yeah,
same. And he came to the stream. He was really sad about it. And it's not just Asa. A lot of players approach it differently. Disco approaches it differently than Setsuku. Disco approaches it differently from Wade and Iverson. And they all have success in their own way. This set has immense potential to really separate itself. Kind of sad Bryce's not playing this set because I think it's sort of exactly the set that he would want. But I am going to see him next week, and I am going to give him grief about it because he was supposed to come to Paris. And we sort of pressured him like, hey, if you're going to come and play in it, I have to make a decision like this week. And this was like in October or something like, or September. He's like, well, if I have to make a decision now, I can. So I'm like, okay, well, you missed out. And turns out we were right. And he was wrong, as usual.
When we interviewed Mortdog, we had talked about that one podcast episode where you and Bryce had talked about the ideal TFT set. And he had to sit on his hands, Mortdog did, the entire time. He's like, I have this. It's here. And it was this set. It was set 16. And I think about I thought about that often with Bryce and how much he would enjoy it. So maybe we can send out the bat signal and get him back. What do you think? Is that possible?
Not for a while. The problem with Bryce isn't desire. It's more just that he has too many spinning plates. I think he's taking like a little bit of a step back from his career stuff, but he's choosing to fill that with basically being the best possible dad he can, and the best possible partner to his wife and his family, because he has 3 kids under 3. I mean, I think they're approaching 4 now, so it's just a lot to handle. I mean, Gangly knows he has a handful of kids always as well to deal with. So for him, the soonest that Bryce will probably come back is not next open, but the one after that. I think in like 2 years he could be there. But then by then he'd be removed for 3.5 years from the scene. Who knows what TFT is like, but I hope Bryce can come back by then. But that's the thing about TFT. You can always come back anytime, right? It doesn't matter if you need to take a long break, if you don't play for a while, or, like Ripple Overdrive, a player that we signed for TFT Academy in the final lobby. He's kind of coming to the end of his 1 year. I want to give TFT a really good shot. And he was just telling me about how he wants to continue to pursue the dream, whether or not he is working or, pursuing TFT full time. And I feel like he told me, though, said no matter what happens with that work and that career choice, I know I'll always play TFT and I can always come back to it. I'm like, no matter what, man, you come back in 6 months, you'll always be an absolute beast and a demon. So I think that's one of the charms about playing this game competitively. You can always come back.
100%. And if you know TFT, you know TFT. And I think it's like riding a bike a little bit. It takes a little bit to read stuff, if you're able to do that as a TFT player. But it definitely is like riding a bike. One of the other big things that changed this time around for the Open was how your experience as a co-streamer was the main competitive focus and way to follow along with the tournament, where what Gangly was doing on the main broadcast was quite different. And so I want to talk a little bit with you guys about what you noticed between co-streaming and also being on main broadcast, where you're hosting game shows on stage instead of screaming about TFT plays.
I'm actually very excited to talk about this. Well, first off, I don't know, Dan, if you were even aware that like the main broadcast wasn't focusing as much or indexing as highly on competitive, but I think that the co-stream versus main broadcast discussion for a long time has seen these two entities as like combating forces. Like, oh, we want people to watch the main broadcast, but everyone keeps going to this Frodan guy's co-stream. Like, we want those viewers. And then likewise, I think like some co-streamers, or maybe it's like some audience, feel like a certain level of loyalty to a co-streamer that makes them feel almost like against main broadcast. Like they almost feel like they kind of have to defend the co-stream as like the premier way to watch TFT. I think the longer I've worked on main broadcast, the longer I felt like, man, I wish people would just genuinely believe that these two things could coexist in a way that works in tandem. And I felt like the Paris Open was certainly not a perfect version of it, but a really good attempt to try and say these are two different products that are attempting to do something different than one another. So the main broadcast, we actually didn't follow any competitive games on day one at all, which, to be clear, I think was a miss. I think it was like indexing too hard on game shows and event coverage outside of the games. But we did a bunch of really fun game shows. I did Cluttered Mind, which was actually a show that Jack had hosted at DigiDuos, like in front of an audience. We had a bunch of other shows. Super fun. I loved it. Like, actually, maybe the most fun I've had as talent on any show related to TFT ever was doing Cluttered Mind. I hope we get to do it again. And then at Top 64 on day 2 is when the main broadcast caught up with the co-streamers, and we started following games. We would hop into lobbies as well. I think that there's a world in which it does make a lot of sense for those who are engaged the most with TFT to follow co-streamers. The reality is, like, the way TFT is, it's a decision-making game. It's also so subjective that, like, you oftentimes want to hear the thought process behind why people agree and disagree. And main broadcast, we have like an agenda is the term I'm going to use. Like, we have to make sure that we are talking about big picture things. We do try to wrap things in a generally more positive light. And, like, quite frankly, we can't have the same level of transparency that a lot of top players want to have when talking about the game. And so there's a lot of people who are hyper engaged in TFT that want that transparency. It just makes sense for them to go to co-streamers. And so I like that I am able to talk to, like, newer faces or people who are trying to decide if they really want to bridge into hyper competitive TFT by offering, like, you know, the main broadcast experience. I'm starting to ramble a little bit, so I'm going to try and bring myself back. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I appreciated that the Paris Open tried to make a product that was super unique and that worked in tandem with the co-streamers, where the goal really was, hey, if you already know what's going on, go watch any of these assortment of co-streamers and you're going to have a fantastic time. We'll see you on Championship Sunday, where we'll have a bit more of a produced show. I don't think it's the perfect version of it, but Zane, a lot of people probably know Zane. If you don't, he was one of the masterminds behind the TFT Summit a couple of years ago, and he was a producer on the show and worked really hard to try and come up with a creative vision for trying to find out how the main broadcast can evolve. And I really appreciated the attempt. I do think that maybe in the future it should be something where we have, like, more field reporter hits, or more like I don't know, like a sideline view of the tournament in between every single one of these side events that we're hosting. But again, I just want to nail this idea that I appreciated that for the first time it felt like no one was comparing the two products together, and that people kind of understood these are just two completely separate entities that are trying to do two different things. Sorry for that being so long-winded, but it is something that's important.
I see what you're saying. I think that where the main broadcast can exist is sort of like, I feel like Olympic coverage is probably the best way I can draw an analogy, where there's a main broadcast that actually should sort of be hovering and explaining what's going on in sort of a quicker snap format. I think the main broadcast not covering day one is a mistake as well. I think they can definitely do the show match, the Cluttered Minds, the fun death panels, the who wins here. I think the show match is actually one of my favorite parts of day one, actually. The DSG versus the Mad Lions Koi, Movie Star Koi, excuse me. Because of how big of an underdog DSG was. And I actually happened to be watching that on Toast's co-stream, not my own, because I just stopped by to say hi. And then they were, the DSG people were like, we're just going to get stopped. Box said if they won, he would do a backflip on stream. 5% chance to win. And the other people were like, yeah, I don't even know how 44 really works, so I'm not particularly that interested in what's going on here. So I was like, no, but, like, imagine this happens, right? And I kind of painted a world where I thought Saikuno was a win-out player, but it turned out Sagara was. He got a 3-star Diana. Anyways, that part was really fun. I think that they should keep that. That part, that was one of my highlights of day one, highlights of the weekend, in fact, watching my friends win like that. But they can also weave in, right, red zone NFL coverage and saying this was going on in this lobby and here's all the different stuff. It's hard to keep track of what's going on. Why not have the main broadcast have a ticker, the central score, that you can keep track of everything, be the source of truth in that sense. And then if you want to watch a specific event, right, you want to watch the 100 freestyle swimming, you want to watch the track and field, you want to watch the pole vaulting, you can go to these specific coaching for that specific event. So I think that's probably the approach that I would go if I was given the reins and said, like, you have to try to improve what's already been done. But the reality is the main broadcast did a lot this time around, and I think you're right that the products can coexist. I also think main broadcast is really underrated, even just for straight up TFT commentary. So I always tell people, like, you guys have this idea and notion of stuff that was true 2 years ago, but you're acting like people haven't improved and the product hasn't gotten better since.
I think one of my favorite parts was that my wife was able to come along with me to the Paris Open, and shout out her because that's brave of her to be able to do that. And she had a good time meeting all the friends and hanging out and watching TFT. But one of the things she enjoyed most was, like, I get to watch Mortdog and Robin songs run around these computers and be out of breath and make funny stances while they're checking their augments and all these different things. Now, does she know exactly what's happening? No, but this is something that's fun for the spectator, for the casual viewer, I'm sure online as well. And so the main broadcast providing a different kind of entertainment rather than sweaty TFT is also just a wonderful thing for the spectator experience. But there also is so much more than just the round of 768 people playing TFT. So I think it definitely has a great spot, and I'm excited where they continue to go with that sort of idea.
And where am I supposed to launch my music career if not for the main broadcast?
That's true.
That rap was pretty sick, man. I mean, I don't think you wrote the entire thing from my understanding.
Nope, I did not. I can pull back the curtain. So this was like maybe 3 weeks ago. I get a DM from Dracos, who was a producer on the show, but anyone who's listening probably knows him better as being a caster for the LEC. Recently casted the World Championship of League of Legends. Yep, and this is my state-of-the-art recording studio for where we recorded this rap. And Dracos reached out to me saying, "Hey, I want to do a rap for Paris." They told me that you'd probably be someone who would be willing to make a fool out of yourself for camera. And so he had me basically write like a verse and chorus and give him a ton of references, and he's like, just go for it. Whatever happens, happens. I am like, this is not something I do. What I sent him was not very good at all. I did write the Bart and Brock call it rock and roll line, which I was extremely proud of. I thought that was lyrical genius. It came to me when I was driving, and I had this like silent fist pump moment of like, yes, like I got it. But yeah, I would say like 80% of what I sent him did not make the final cut. Most of that was just Dracos, and he held my hand through the entirety of the actual production process. It would not be anywhere as good or anywhere as cool. Not that it was particularly cool, but it would not have been anything near what it was if it were not for Draco. Shout out to him. He's also just a really, really cool guy. I had so much fun working with him all weekend long, and I hope he gets to do more TFT stuff in the future.
We just need Gangly back in his real honest music form. We need him playing the harp instead. That's what we need.
Gangly harp.
It's a really inside joke. Anyway, let's wrap up the Paris Open and talk a little bit about the final day. We had a great showing of the 8 players in the final lobby. Again, this is Checkmate once again. We had 4 people reach check for our final game in Game 5. And coming out on top is probably the biggest name when it comes to the competitive TFT scene in this lobby, and that is Huamei from China. He was the set 5 Tactician's Crown winner, right? Yeah, set 5.
Yep. And now technically it was the global championship. Tactician's Crown hadn't existed before.
Oh, you're right.
He's a world
global championship.
And was able to take it in Game 5. in a pretty dramatic fashion, hitting Baron 2 in 2 rolls, and he knew it was over. So congrats to Huame for winning. What was your guys' experience in the final day? Obviously, Frodan, you guys signed a player for the final day.
Yeah, it was our first time signing a player for TFT Academy. Hopefully the beginning of what could be a pro team. It kind of just depends a lot on, well, the first thing is how well our overlay does, because if we don't have the money to spend on it, we know it's like money down the drain, but we feel like it's just worth investing. Same thing with Meta TFT, right? Why does Meta TFT sponsor players? Same exact reason. Just because it's like a nice way to kind of give back to the community that's given us so much. I really felt like Ripple had a good shot at it. I do think that he didn't get like any of the easy spots, right? He tried to avoid game, 3-way void, 4-way void, impossible. Didn't really get the build water stuff. Didn't really get like any easy layups. So he had a hard day, but we're proud of him regardless. And Juanmei doing well isn't surprising. I said on stream, contrary to what Soju might say, Soju said, because I tried to tell, like Milk was like, oh my God, Juanmei's in my lobby and other players. I'm going to go wait. I'm like, don't worry. Like Juanmei low key is washed. And then Soju like heard that without me explaining like the context behind all of that and just ran with it for like the rest of the weekend. He just kept saying like, yeah, like this guy's washed, right? Frodan, right? Frodan, huh? Like, like, and then of course he won the whole thing. And Soju just kept saying that over and over. And then he got on the mic and was basically saying like, yeah, like, a lot of people kicked me while I was down or like were calling me washed. Like basically he was like saying that. And I was like, see, like I'm not the one saying it. I'm saying that's what everyone else is saying. Anyways, I'm happy for him. He's been a long time, one of the top CM players for a while, accomplishment wise. And then hadn't done anything for a while. He actually has failed to qualify for regionals several times in the past couple of years. And a lot of players in China were actually kind of, taking the piss out of Juanmei whenever they could. They'd be like, yeah, this guy is like bad and he doesn't pass the eye test. This is other CN players saying that. I was like that was kind of disrespectful because he hits rank 1 all the time. And I even did YouTube videos on him, right? Like I owe a lot of like my understanding and analysis because I've seen Juanmei hit rank 1 repeatedly set after set, even as recently as last set. So he's a completely deserving champion. Most points. I think he won half his games on the weekend or something like that, or more than that. Wow. I think he played like 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 15, 20 games. I think he won 9 of them, which is just unreal. The unreal win rate. One of the scariest players to ever play checkmate. It's not a surprise to see him win again.
I feel like there's a lot of people who probably listen to this podcast who weren't around when Juanmei was like the king, right? Because there was a period of time. I mean, the three of us were there, but if you went back, like Juanmei was the first person to ever make 4 consecutive champs. I remember back, when Dan said this before, the global championship, there's a period of time where Riot was really pushing everyone to start calling it champs instead of worlds, and that never caught on. But yeah, he was the first person to ever make 4 consecutive world championships. He won in set 5, and he did so in a way that was like pretty unconventional, playing around like a Legionnaire reroll line that was just not particularly popular. And I think it's fitting that this is the set that he wins again, that he kind of rises back to glory. It's a lot of people, I said it even earlier in this episode, that I think there's a lot of people that feel like this set feels like old school TFT. And when I was watching him play during Saturday night, round 64, I was watching with, that was with you, Jack. You were on those games. And I made the comment like 2 games in a row that I was really impressed by his understanding of the cadence of the game, of this like push and pull. Oh, actually, Dan, you would appreciate this because you're probably more familiar with this concept in fighting games of like your turn, my turn, right? Of understanding when you need to actually push an advantage and when you need to let your opponent have space. And I felt like watching Juanmei play, you could see that in TFT. He didn't force a spike when he knew he wouldn't be able to continue his spike. And so he was really comfortable playing in these margins of understanding when he had to be weaker than the lobby and when he needed to spike, when he felt like he had the proper resources to do that consistently and confidently. And it was incredibly I mean, it was like, I don't know, the level of play on Saturday night, to me, it felt like he was playing perfectly. It was really, really impressive. I loved watching it. And again, it's just fitting. Like, this is the set 16. It's not perfect. Obviously, there's some meta stuff that felt not particularly great, but I did feel like there was a lot of skill expression in his run, and it feels like an extremely deserving champ. And I just love that he got to make this resurgence after kind of being pushed out by like the uprising of stats and the optimization of the game. And like Dan was alluding to earlier, it did feel like the game had just moved on without him for a long time. And to see him come back when he felt like the set gave him the tools to play the way he wanted to play the game. Yeah. I mean, it was poetry. So, GG Swanmie.
Yeah, well said.
We were able to watch him have some like really patient gameplay too. It was just, I mean, I learned a lot from it. It was like, oh, you don't have to use these rerolls here on level 6 right now, because what are you going to upgrade? Anyway, he was like, I already have my 2 stars. I'm not close to 3 stars, so just sit here, wait for maybe my next augment, maybe wait for the next Ixtal cast to see if it's rerolls. Like, it was just like, I remember that specifically, that too much value Bard game. It was masterful. I learned a lot, and going to the final day, I was like, I mean, obviously he's experienced in this format and very much proved that he was to be dominant. And he puts himself now in a category of player that has won what we can probably just call 2 TFT majors, of either the Tactician's Crown or an Open. And there's very few people that have done that. And I think it puts them in a category of their own. And what we would say across sports, esports, all the things, is in the GOAT category. And TFT's in a spot where I don't know if we can say definitively who the greatest of all time is. And I know many of our players would really like to be in that category. I know Dishsoap himself has put on record that he wants to be the standalone GOAT. But I think for now, there's a bunch of people that can be in that discussion. And so I thought, what better guest to have on to talk about who could be the greatest of all time. Frodan, you have been around for a long time and have experienced and talked with so many of these players. So I want to start by having us list out who could possibly be the GOAT. And this is starting with the only two-time Tactician's Crown World Championship winners to this open title.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, in my opinion, it's Dishsoap, largely just due to sort of his level of consistency, which is really hard to match. The thing about Title is that he has a very impressive body of work that spans longer than Dishsoap, so you can actually argue a little bit longer longevity. But for me, it's the fact that Dishsoap made 5 world championships in a row, and part of it is because he won, so he gets invited back. But also, when he got invited back, he qualified as well, like manually. Yeah. It's not like he just kind of rests on his laurels. Versus Title, a couple of the sets where it felt like he wasn't guaranteed, he kind of got blowed out. And so there's the level of consistency that I see at Dishsoap is unrivaled. So personally, I have him above Title. I am admittedly biased for many reasons.
What?
But I'm North America. I'm a business partner of Dishsoap. He's also my friend, right, on a personal level, and I've watched him way more than Title. But I actually think that Title is still a very strong player, and this set actually favors his skill sets really well. But personally, I don't feel as much drive from Title to compete the way I feel from Dishsoap. But again, it's because I talked to Dishsoap. I just know that dude is super competitive. He was so mad after Paris. He was mad. And this is a format where it's like, come on, man, you played like 3 games and you just had a really unfortunate situation. But he was like, I deserve to go on if I like actually played better. I'm an idiot, that kind of thing. And he gets really fired up. He's got that Mamba mentality, right, from the NBA. From Kobe Bryant. He really cares just even about all the small stuff. So I personally have Dishsoap right now over Title. But you know what? It's one of those things where I think the conversation is only going to get more interesting as the years go by. So I'm willing to change that if Title makes another crazy run this set.
So the 2 other people that would be in conversation that aren't on this list would be Double 61 and Swanmie at this point. winning Paris Open. I'm gonna say off the bat, as much as I just said a lot of really nice things about Juan May, I actually think in this list of people. Oh, you're putting Malala there too. Interesting.
I mean, he
okay,
has the same as I mean, not the same,
yeah,
but he's got 2 major wins, right?
Sure. You're right. I would say in this list, I would probably put Juan May Malala as 4 or 5, and I actually think there's like a gap between Double and Juan May. No, I actually would put Double in like I don't know if he's in this same tier exactly as Dish Open title, or if he's in a tier of his own. The thing about Double is like, okay, yes, he technically does not have 2 international wins in the way that Dish Open title does. He has a second behind Dish Open in set 11 Tactician's Crown, and he did top 8 the Vegas Open as well. He also is the only player in the world to have never missed a regional finals. So technically, Double 61 is not as decorated as Dish Open title. I feel like the difference between them is pretty negligible. You could say that, like, yes, Double has made more worlds, but he's also kind of like not shown up at worlds more than anyone else too. He's had a lot of invisible performances that have been pretty concerning. But at the same time, it's like, do you really want to knock him for making it back to worlds more than anyone else and not doing as well every single time? Like, not really. I also feel like it's probably Dish Soap, and I think for me it's like the fact that he hit his peaks consistently over a significant amount of sets, all within a period of time where TFT was like at its hardest relative to now when we're talking about it, right? It's like in this current era of TFT. I'm not saying that like early set TFT was Disneyland or whatever, but I do think that having the stretch of set 10 through 14, I guess, that Dish Soap had is like the hardest stretch of TFT that anyone could have done what he did. And similar to what Dan is saying, Dish Soap has never had a drought similar to the drought we've seen from title, where there have been times where you're not sure what form title is in. Dish Soap, like, yeah, in last set, he didn't look particularly great, but I don't think you ever really doubted that he was just one of the best players in the server, like, period. Everyone still believed in Dish Soap the entire time. So there's like a certain subjective nature, like an aura around Dish Soap that I do feel like gives him this is what's interesting, where it's like the GOAT status. GOAT is a title, right? It's like something you attribute to a person because you believe that they're the best. I think Dish Soap has that almost like godhood level of aura to him, where even if he wasn't good, you would still believe that he's the best. And I don't think that you would do the same for title.
I think the easiest example of this in traditional sports is Tom Brady, because it's so far and above. Like, he is by far the GOAT in American football, where you look at him and you could never doubt that he could just win a game. You could never count him out, no matter what it was. I remember so many times being like, oh, the Patriots are going to lose this one. The Patriots are going to lose this one. Oh, he's going to go to Tampa. He's never going to win this one. But time and time again, he's like, no, I'm just going to go out there and win because I'm the GOAT, and that's what I do. I feel that that's very much the same, specifically when it comes to Dish Soap and Double specifically. I look at them. Double obviously doesn't quite have the trophy closet for it, but I look at both of them. I say, any event they're in, they can win, and I would not be surprised even in the slightest. And I think that's a lot of what would make me put a lot of them above one another. And we brought this up mainly because someone like Kwame, who has been, probably the CN GOAT for a while, somebody we look at and said this is their best player. But now with the Paris Open belt, he very much is the CN GOAT and belongs in this list. But has he reached the same level of godhood of I can just show up and win an event as somebody like Dish Soap or Double or Title?
Yeah, no, I think he doesn't. To be frank, like, I think that's that's the biggest part of Juan Mia's career, and like why this win feels so powerful is because of this extremely large valley in his career. And this is what Dan was talking about when Juan Mia is doing the interview, and he's like, and I don't know if this is like if the drama behind it is a Chinese language thing, like or if it was just him like really trying to paint a picture. But he said something along the lines of like when I was down and at my lowest, nobody cared about me, nobody would check on me, and no one cared how I did. And like that's what made this win mean so much. But also, it's like coming with that is this tag of inconsistency, and that's just like that's not something that you can really have out of a GOAT, in my opinion.
Yeah, for now. I think the fun part about it is that now it's like too many people are in this club now. So it's really like whoever just takes a really, like if Dishop wins again, I don't think it's a conversation. If Title does another good run, because I mean he almost made final lobby, by the way, of the Open, which is crazy because he made final lobby of last set. And his international results, I think he has the most international results besides double 61. And double, if he wins 2, it's like then you have to recognize that he's been doing it the whole time, right? If he wins 2, he's made more worlds and he's never missed regionals, and he has like this LeBron level of like he's just done it since forever. So
yep.
For about 5 years, which is starting to reach actual like esports pedigree type of thing where you have longevity conversations, because 5 years is like an extreme period of dominance. So it's not for anyone's grasp. So it's hard. I think I'm with Gangly. I think this is just like, Zoomerisms, which is you say everyone's the GOAT. But I think if you're talking about like Hall of Fame ballots, who goes in what order, I think this looks correct to me. I think the gaps are correct as well. So I'm very curious because we have 3 sets a year, so we have a lot more TFT to play.
And it changes so fast. And I think probably the greatest showing of this is something that was shared on the final day, which is our sneak peek into 2026. Dan, that was a great transition. Well done. You should cast and do stuff more often. We got to look at what's coming up in 2026. We have our next, what's it called? Set Revival coming out in January. And then set 17, set 18, set 19, and then going back to Vegas for the next Vegas Open. Are we calling it like Vegas 2? How are we doing it?
So. I think that is actually the official thing is Vegas 2.
Yeah, with like a big 2 behind it, like all the movies do.
I don't know about that, but I do think Riot is calling it Vegas 2.
Oh, cool. I love it. What are we most excited about on this graphic? Looking at it now, and if you say tech upgrade, I'm going to ask you what you think that means. So I'm very curious what that means. So Dan, what are you most excited for?
I'm excited for the Vegas Open. I think Riot. I think TFT is really uniquely positioned to actually be a central force in the ecosystem because it's like the perfect second game for a lot of these people. It's really hard to main League of Legends and say 2x KO. That's just very hard, but you can very much play League and TFT. You can very much play 2x KO and TFT. You can play, TFT plus anything really, because it's a great casual game. And I think that if Vegas goes really well from the convention side of things, we might actually see some really transformative things in the future about where TFT is. So I'm excited for that. And it's a year out, so we'll see. I think I'm most excited. If I can't pick that, I'm a huge fan of their music. I think that's actually like just been consistently one of the best things about Riot. Their music production has been great, and Set 10 was a banger. The thing they did with Steve Aoki was awesome. I don't know if you guys were there at Hex Core Nights, but the music they played there for the arcade stuff was also really great. So the music stuff you already know is going to be a banger.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of took the ones I wanted to say. Can I just +1 that? I do want to say, super excited for Vegas. Grateful it's in NA again. I was kind of hoping it was somewhere else. Nothing wrong with Vegas, and Vegas was a great. People love the casino, being able to gamble after you're knocked out of TFT. But I was kind of hoping it would be like to shake it up a little. I thought maybe Toronto would be cool. Maybe we go to maybe the New Jersey Open happens, or Boston or something. Maybe one day.
The Atlantic City Open.
Yeah. I could see Atlantic City. It's basically Vegas.
Cleveland, Ohio
Actually,
is beautiful at this time of year.
Yeah, Cleveland.
No, there's no shot. I was interested. I actually asked Sherman about this when we were in Paris together. It's like I was a little curious. I was like, hey, going back to Vegas, is this going to be like a rotation kind of thing? And he said no, that's not really the plan. And he told me this, and I thought it was very interesting. He's like, besides Macau, where China was the best participating region because it was in China, Americas has been the highest participating and competing region in both, obviously, the Vegas Open and in Paris. And so he's like, but for spectator passes for these things, Americas has showed up the most. So it makes sense to go back to Vegas and be able to be there. And I didn't know that, and I thought it was an interesting fact and made a lot more sense of why back to specifically North America for this next Open. So I think it makes sense. It's definitely a lot cheaper because flying a lot of their staff out to Paris is expensive, but if they're living in LA, flying them to Vegas is very, very cheap. So I'm excited to see what they can do with maybe a few extra dollars and expand the convention and all these things, and I think it's going to be great.
And they did say it's going to be bigger. They didn't say what that means yet, right? I think they even clarified that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a larger entrant cap than what we had this year. But they are expecting it to be bigger, whatever that means.
I mean, I think they just need to make it RiotCon. And just have TFT Open be a big part of that. And then, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if that's where a lot of things converge that isn't League of Legends.
Yep.
And I guess Valorant, which I guess ends up being just TFT and the other games. You know what? They'll probably just make it bigger and better. That's what it is.
The crossover between TFT and Riftbound's huge, as we have talked about probably too much on the show. It is like I could see it being a regional. I could see so many of these different things of like, hey, Riftbound also can help market TFT to these Riftbound players. Like, you know, all these different things of getting the physical players to play a different Riot game as well. So I think there's so much promise here. Each of these sets. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, I just want to bounce off that because I feel like what we're describing here, this cross section between Riot titles, is something that is making its way even into grassroots stuff. I know, like with the Tri-State events, we've been talking a lot about how can we incorporate Riftbound into our TFT event? How can we leverage the local Tri-State Riftbound community and convert them into people who might be casual or maybe even one day casual competitive or even competitive TFT fans as well. Like there's a lot of opportunities for people to, I think, see what they're doing with the Paris Open and with the Vegas Open and even apply that on a smaller scale to your grassroots level. Obviously this is like totally tangential to what we're talking about, but I hope that they continue this trend of incorporating other Riot titles, because the more that we get to see what it looks like on the big screen, I think people do get inspired and start to bring that stuff home with them. And that is like something we're trying to do with Tri-State, but when we have more details, I'll officially launch something on this podcast.
Speaking of things that are lacking details, we have spoilers a little bit for the next few sets as well. Set 17, set 18, set 19. Set 17, Celestial, looks like it's based in space. We had the Jin in the Carousel of Chaos game that will most definitely be, I would think it's like a dark cosmic Jin that's in this set. That'd be my thought.
Dark Star is back, yeah.
Dark Star, yeah, whatever that looks like. Set 18 being more of a foresty theme, more of the natural woodland druid idea with a tech upgrade. Frodan, what are the odds? And if you can't say anything, I understand that we're getting a client.
Pretty low. But I don't think. I think people who say that TFT should be on its own client, I understand where it's coming from. It's mainly from like a patch, cadence, bug, technical perspective. But the amount of benefit that TFT gets for being in the league client is unbelievably massive. I would be very surprised if they decided to decouple that. I think maybe if there was another client, maybe like on top of it, but that's kind of weird to have two launchers. Kind of like how you can play Overwatch and Battle.net and Steam. But I guess that could work if that was the case, if they create a second one. I think the tech upgrade, especially because they revealed it in this roadmap, is probably something that we're not really expecting. And I can't really imagine it. I can't really like theorize beyond that. Like I don't know any information, so I'd just be randomly guessing. But my assumption would be that TFT maybe could be in the league client, but they can separate patching and kind of create a situation where TFT is much more dynamic with its patch schedule instead of having to be tied to the league client. That would probably be a big tech upgrade. But I know that Riot employees have told me many times that there's a major amount of tech debt that's going on with Riot because it's built on the League of Legends client from 2009. So it wouldn't surprise me if something crazy happened with that. Who knows? Either way, there's almost too much at stake now. Like,
yeah,
but the amount of money that Riot makes off of League of Legends and TFT and things like that is like they can't really afford like the way tech is scaling. So they do have to do something about that. So if they come out with a new launcher or something like that, that'd be sick. But I don't expect it personally.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I'm just so curious. People are tweeting about new client and all these different things, but we really don't know at all. It's just a nebulous tech upgrade. But I'm excited because it made this graphic, which means it's important.
It'd be a TFT Clash. That's my guess.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, the way that it would be a new client would be if League of Legends 2 is announced. Like the way CS2, Counter-Strike 2 is announced, like an engine update that changed everything about the game, and now TFT updates as well. That I could see.
It is the upgrade.
Sorry, assuming that never going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen for League, but if it did happen, that would make sense for TFT.
I mean, it's Vegas 2. So, League 2, TFT.
So League 2, I see,
yeah.
And TFT 2.
Yeah, probably not.
That's great.
We're doing it. We're solving it. Anyway, continuing to look forward into more things, let's look at the competitive roadmap for this set, and we want to talk a little bit about what is to come. The biggest part of this set, and the beginning of the set specifically, was the Paris Open, but now we're getting into the absolute grind, specifically for Frodan, that is this competitive roadmap, and all that is to come. We have our first ladder snapshot in less than a week. And so players have now gotten home from Paris and now have to climb a ton for this ladder snapshot, looking towards specifically our first TPC event in the new year, January 9th through the 11th, and then the trials and cup to follow that. But I want to talk more specifically about TPC and the changes to the postseason for this set, the set 16 competition structure. Dan, we had a few changes from last set, and I was able to sit down a little bit with Natures and talk about some of these things that came about. One of the biggest things that has changed, we talked a little bit about this on our last show, is now the top pro point earner will go to the Tactician's Crown and will automatically get there. So, one, do you think this is a good thing? And two, did Soju get robbed?
A little bit. But that's okay because that's sort of the meme. But like, you know, because if Soju had, if he basically a person that should have been the world, I think 4 times. If the format applied one set before, it's almost like they learned like, oh, because of this feels bad, almost as if he's like the guinea pig. So yeah, but on the other hand, if you're good enough, just do it again, right? It's fine. I would say this format, like the infographic makes it look a lot more complicated than it actually is. But in the end, I think the changes are positive. I think 16 makes sense. 12 was a little bit too aggressive for the relegation. I do think that they undervalue the ladder players from tier 2. I think those players in general have done really well in the past, and they were the best performers going to regionals. They did better than the tier 1 players.
By a large margin.
Like a little bit. Yeah, I would like a little bit more love towards that, but that is like nitpicking, right? That's sort of like moving, that's just sort of moving things on the platter. I think overall it's a really good step forward. I also think that in general with the TFT competitive format is I just think we need more reps on things. I think it becomes much more apparent what we need to change once we do it more often. So I don't really need more structure. I just need more sample size, right? To see what the actual weaknesses of. So I'm just excited to get that started. I think it starts January?
Yeah, looks like it starts.
I think it's
January 9th.
Okay, so that's like a few weeks from now, but knowing how life works, it's like, okay, well, I have this week and then Christmas comes and then it's like the week after that. It's not, but that's how my brain sorts it. So I was like, wow, that's like tomorrow. So yeah, because we're recording this in the middle of December, but that's going to creep up pretty fast.
I'm curious to see what they do for trials this set, because they haven't announced details yet, right? I am assuming it is not going back to Trials 2 of last set, where it was the full open using the platform. But I do want to say, I hope they use that still. Like, I don't know if they're planning on doing sub-regionals. I don't know if that's not actually on here, right? Any sub-regional stuff isn't on this roadmap.
No.
I hope they use whatever that competitive platform was that they used for Trials number 2 for some sort of sub-regional, or even just using it for a different format. Like, I loved the rolling pod system. I think that system has a ton of promise, and I also think it solves a lot of issues that TFT has had in terms of like getting people a proper taste of what competition feels like in a way that's not like super, super janky. But yeah, no, I'm excited for it. Obviously, Pro Circuit, we talked about it the last episode, so I don't feel the need to rehash all of the takes we had. But I think you and I, Jack, are both pretty much in agreement with pretty much everything Dan said. I like this format a lot. I think they learned a lot from the freshman season, and it's going to be a good one for set 16.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch the new blood in the TPC show up and really do that, because they worked for it and earned it this time. Getting into TPC the first time, obviously they had to do it somehow, but it was definitely like, if you miss regionals, it feels really bad. And so giving more of an opportunity and a better way to play into the past season makes a lot more sense, and now I'm excited to see them all show up for each of these events. It's going to be great. But I'm just really excited to see this set. I think Lorne Legends is going to be and go down in history as probably the best TFT set of all time. A lot of it is because I think of the great moments that are going to continue to happen. We already saw some of them at the Paris Open, but just some of the great moments and expressions of skill that we're going to see, because this set has a lot of skill expression. And I think it's going to be very, very unique. And so we're going to start to see more and more of that regular competitive circuit come about. And with that, we'll be able to see competitive meta and some of these highly optimized ways of unlocking champions with different things and building crazy boards and all these things. And I'm just personally super excited to see it. And I know that many of us, including myself, will be watching a lot of Frodan co-streams to see what goes on in those. So Dan, thanks so much for coming on. You are the pioneer of a lot of this esports stuff, and so we're thankful to have you on the show and be able to help tell the story of TFT esports alongside you.
And thanks for having me, guys. I think a lot of what you guys do both of you are unsung heroes of the scene. I end up getting a lot of credit for a lot of work that you guys do. So I just want to extend the love right back. Thanks for everything you do.
Jack, before you wrap, I want to make sure that I have the proper platform to tell the people who listen to our podcast that on Wednesday, when I landed in Paris, I went out to dinner with Jack and his wife, Emma. And Emma tells me when we're sitting at dinner that Jack got into a taxi that morning and unironically gave his best Midwestern hola to the taxi driver, thinking that I don't even know that he was speaking French. And then to sandwich that, Jack and I are leaving Hexcore night on Friday, and we get into the Uber, and this guy gets into the Uber and says, "Buongiorno." He says buongiorno. First off, in the middle of the night. That means good morning, and it's Italian.
I was so tired, man. I was so tired.
Oh God.
I have no excuse for the hola other than I've traveled in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries, and so you get into a car and you say hola. But that was just a mistake. The buongiorno I had. There's no excuse. I was tired. But yeah.
Okay. Anyway, you can
me
rap
language.
now. I just wanted to make sure you didn't get away with that.
No, you're the rapper, bro. Ixtal Cash Out's been stuck in my head for like a week now, even though it came out 3 days ago. I don't understand. It just got in my head. It won't go away. Anyway.
Just wait till Vegas when Frodan hops on to collab. It's going to be fire.
I heard there was a producer tag that Frodan did. I didn't hear it, though.
Yeah, but it didn't get added to the final version. I think it was just a time thing, because they were up till like 4 a.m. on Sunday finishing the video. I think they just didn't have time to like go back into the audio file and add stuff, because we were all supposed to do a bunch of like ad libs of me like just saying like random stuff. That didn't happen either.
The lost tapes. Anyway, we can wrap the show. Thank you guys all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure you follow, share, like, comment, do all the things you're supposed to do to make things do better on platforms. We appreciate it a ton. Thank you for watching the Rolldown, and we'll see you guys next time.